April 15th, 2011. Thousands of poker players woke up and went to log into their accounts, but instead of seeing cards, chips, and tables, they saw this. The United States Department of Justice had seized the three biggest online poker sites: PokerStars, Full Tilt, and Absolute Poker. Millions of dollars were instantly frozen, professional careers were wiped out overnight, and an entire industry was brought to a halt. The poker community would come to call this day Black Friday.
I just logged on and saw it online, on a forum. I was like, what's going on? Tried to log in my account. So I was like, wow. No, it was just sudden, Nobody suspected it.
But to understand how the biggest poker boom in history collapsed in a single day, we have to start with how it began in the first place. As many modern poker stories do, this one starts in 2003. An average accountant from Nashville, Tennessee, took the poker world by storm. His name was Chris Moneymaker, and he had just won the World Series of Poker main event. But the story wasn't that he won, it was how he got there. Moneymaker had qualified for the $10,000 buy-in main event through an online satellite that cost just $86. Earning a non-transferable seat to the biggest poker tournament in the world, Moneymaker decided to take a shot. And against all odds, he defeated a field full of professionals. Suddenly, everybody believed they could be the next. Players flooded online poker sites, and the industry began marketing a dream. Sites signed professional players as brand ambassadors. Pros like Phil Ivey, Mike Matusow, and Tom Dwan appeared on television wearing patches like walking billboards. They weren't just poker players anymore. They were influencers before influencers even existed. And the timing couldn't have been better. The internet was rapidly expanding, online payment systems were still new. And most importantly, the legal situation surrounding online poker in the United States was unclear. American players could deposit money, play against people all around the world, and withdraw their winnings. For many professionals, it felt like the golden age of poker. But the government was starting to take notice. In 2006, the US government passed the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act, or UIGEA. But here's the important detail. The law never actually made online poker illegal. Instead, it targeted the payment processing behind it. Banks and financial institutions were now prohibited from facilitating transactions related to online gambling, and the way the law was passed made it even more controversial. The UIGEA wasn't voted on independently, it was attached as a provision to the Safe Port Act, an anti-terrorism security bill, essentially forcing lawmakers to vote for it, since voting against it meant appearing soft on terrorism. Some members of Congress later admitted they hadn't even had time to read the gambling provisions before it was passed.
The Unlawful Internet Gambling Act was passed under rather dubious circumstances and passed the U.S. Senate on the last day of Congress, late at night, with no floor debate, after being attached to an unrelated port security bill. My problem with how the bill passed, however, is beside the point. Let's get to the crux of this issue, Mr. Chairman. What Americans do in their own homes with their own money on their own time is none of the federal government's business.
But in the midst of new legislation, poker operators found themselves at a fork in the road. Yes, some companies left the U.S. market immediately. Party Poker, despite being the industry leader, was publicly traded and had shareholders to answer to. But other sites saw the departure of competitors as an opportunity. They stayed in the American market, and for the next 5 years, online poker continued to thrive in the shadows. Behind the scenes, the sites were scrambling to keep money moving. And that's where the real trouble began. To keep the industry alive, poker sites began working with third-party payment processors. Some of these processors allegedly misrepresented transactions to banks as jewelry, golf balls, and even pet supplies. According to the Department of Justice, these schemes moved hundreds of millions of dollars through the U.S. banking system. For years, the ruse worked, until it didn't. On April 15, 2011, the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed indictments against the founders of PokerStars, Full Tilt, and Absolute Poker. These charges included bank fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. The government seized their domain names, games, instantly stopped. Accounts were frozen, player funds were inaccessible. The online poker world was in absolute chaos.
A lot of people thought they were going to come back.
You're right.
There's still some people that were, thinking that Full Tilt wasn't going to go out of business and that everything was going to be okay.
Right.
And now a year later, we found out, no, not everything's okay.
Yeah.
And we're probably not going to get paid back. And some people still are having hope. There's still some rumors out there that there's a deal going through. But, I offered a lot of people to buy my Full Tilt money at half price, and nobody took me up on it. So I don't know if there's that much hope, really.
But this would only be the tip of the iceberg. At first, many assumed everything would be eventually sorted out. PokerStars quickly reassured customers that their balances were safe and later worked with the DOJ to ensure players were promptly repaid. But when investigators examined Full Tilt Poker's finances, they discovered something shocking. The company owed players roughly $390 million, but only had $60 million available. The rest had already been paid out to company owners and executives. According to federal prosecutors, Full Tilt had essentially been operating like a giant Ponzi scheme. Player deposits were used to pay withdrawals, and massive distributions were made to company insiders. Two of the most recognizable faces associated with Full Tilt were poker legends Howard Lederer and Chris Ferguson. Lederer, known as the Professor, had long been one of poker's most respected figures. Ferguson, the 2000 main event champion nicknamed Jesus, was another iconic player and ambassador. Both had received millions in payment from Full Tilt. While they denied intentional wrongdoing, they became pariahs in poker as many players felt betrayed. These weren't just executives ripping them off, they were their peers. The fallout was enormous. Online poker in the United States effectively disappeared overnight. Professional players moved out of the country to Canada, Mexico, and even across the pond to continue playing. Others hung up their chips and left the game entirely, never to return. Eventually, PokerStars reached a settlement with the DOJ. As a part of the deal, PokerStars acquired Full Tilt and helped repay players who still had outstanding balances. But the damage was already done. Black Friday permanently reshaped the poker industry. First, it pushed governments towards state-regulated online poker markets. Today, states like New Jersey, Nevada, Michigan, and Pennsylvania run licensed poker platforms with strict oversight. Although limited liquidity between states has made it impossible for online grinders to see the kinds of prize pools that existed in the early 2000s. On the operator side, players' funds must be segregated. Audits are required, and financial transparency is far greater than during the early poker boom. Second, it globalized the professional poker scene. Many American pros moved abroad for years just to keep playing online. Entire communities of poker players formed in countries where online poker was still legal. Third, it fundamentally changed player trust. Before Black Friday, few players questioned whether sites actually held their money. After the Full Tilt collapse, that innocence disappeared. Security and regulation became central to the industry, but so did doubt. 15 years later, the ripple effect of Black Friday remains. Online poker is slowly returning state by state, but the Wild West era where anyone, anywhere could share a table may be gone for good. April 15th didn't just shake the game, it changed it forever.